on is on. We're a couple of minutes over, but let's make a start. Just going to turn off one or two of my other programs. So okay, welcome everybody to the Cabinet meeting today, 19th of May. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Farah Hussain, and I know that everybody else, all other 8 Cabinet members, are on this meeting. Declaration of interest. All members in attendance are reminded of the requirement to consider whether they have an interest in any matter on the agenda that needs to be disclosed, and if so, to declare an interest when the Cabinet reaches that item on the agenda. Agenda item 3 is the public participation statement, questions, deputations and petitions. We have 2 speakers who are not speaking on an agenda item. First, I call upon Mr. Barker speaking on the outturn report regarding the capital expenditure investment assets acquisition. I'm led to believe that Mr. Barker is not on this call, and certainly the question he asks in the agenda reports, page 60 regarding accounts, it states that the capital expenditure investment assets acquisitions is £77.19 million. Could you please clarify what this capital expenditure is for? And certainly the response has been given to Mr. Barker yesterday at the overview committee, and certainly I'm sure Councillor Rai will ensure that the same response goes again in answer to Mr. Barker's question. The second question comes from Mr. Walker. Mr. Walker, if I could ask you, you have 2 minutes, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question, sir.
Yeah, I've got that. Can you hear me, Leader?
I can hear you.
Good, good. Leader, will Redbridge Council publish NO2 and other pollutant thresholds caused by development, which would be so adverse to human health as noted in the Gladman judgment, mentioned at paragraph 106, and would therefore give grounds for a development such as Tesco's to be refused?
Councillor Apple, you're on mute.
I can't hear.
Sorry, Councillor Apple, your microphone is on mute.
Thank you. I shall start again. Mr. Walker, thank you for your question, sir. Certainly my officers have reviewed the judgment that you've identified. That judgment is 80 paragraphs long and is focused on the effectiveness and of the mitigation measures in respect to the air quality, and not the absolute measures or the absolute limits which make a development unacceptable. However, notwithstanding this assumption, Mr. Walker, certainly this council considers the air quality against the air quality objectives that are enshrined in the EU Ambient Air Quality Directives, which are published in the Council's Air Quality Action Plan and supported by policies within the Council's adopted local plan, which is published on its website. Annual mean levels of NO2 and PM10 above 40 micrograms per cubic meter, sir, would be absolutely unacceptable if they could not be successfully mitigated. However, these measures are not relevant to the Tesco site, where the modelling has clearly indicated that the current and the occupation levels of NO2 and PM10 concentrations will be well below the annual mean level. And certainly, Mr. Walker, as previously advised many times now, you should really direct your comments and queries to the Council's Planning Committee, who in due course will be asked to consider these points and many others in determining the application for the redevelopment of the Tesco site, to whether this is acceptable or not. That is the right place, because you get that opportunity and you'll be given that opportunity. And I've made that point many, many times. I hope that answers your question, sir. Do you have a supplementary?
I do, Leader. Well, thank you for a detailed answer. My supplementary question is, can you provide an assurance that the Labour Whip will not be responsible for substitutes at the Planning Committee, at the Tesco or any other application, please?
I think you've already had the answer from the Borough Solicitor. Any political question, this is Redbridge Council, sir. We are here in the interests of our residents, and any political questions you can ask me, but not in an official cabinet meeting. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Leader.
What I would say, thank you for your contribution, Mr. Walker. Your access to this meeting will now be terminated, and of course you can continue to watch the proceeding using the link that's on the website. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Okay, agenda item 4 was references, comments from committees. There are none. Agenda item 5 is the forward plan, and I'm just asking if the forward plan on pages 1 to 8 of the agenda can be agreed.
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 Okay, I need to take a show of hands, if you could do that, please. Thank you. There's a show of hands on your menu bar, and some of you used it, others have put your hand up. I can confirm that 8 members of the Cabinet have agreed that. Thank you very much. So we go on to the next item, which is agenda item 6, the Anti-Fraud and Corruption Strategy 2020-21. Could I ask Councillor Rai, please, to introduce the report? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Leader. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the anti-fraud and corruption strategy is an integral part of the Council's overall governance framework. It's designed to encourage prevention and promote the detection of both fraud and corruption against the Council. The key messages contained within the strategy remain consistent. Fraud will continue to not be tolerated. Prevention is our main cure, and that where it's found, the strongest possible actions of redress will be taken. The anti-fraud corruption strategy has been updated for the forthcoming year, but remains consistent with the previous iterations with no significant amendments. It was considered and endorsed by the Governance and Assurance Committee on the 30th of January of this year, and is now put before Cabinet for approval. For information, CIPFA have updated their fraud benchmarking across similar organisations, identifying the total value of public sector fraud in the previous financial year, in 1819, sorry, and that dropped for the second year running to 253 million nationally, as did the overall cases, but the average value of the fraud continued to be consistent at just over 3,500. The main areas of increase that we've seen, the largest area increases, was with council tax single person discount increasing by 3.6 million nationally. I'm proud to say that our payments and benefit team are on top of this and do a lot of strong work in ensuring that the fraud in this area is kept to a minimum. The council strategy aligns to the principles set out by the CIPFA Code of Practice, and I commend the report to colleagues. You're on mute again.
Sorry, Councillor Apple, your microphone's muted.
Any questions, please, for the Cabinet Member? Thank you. I think it's a report which we've seen before, and certainly a lot of good work has gone into this. And certainly I'd like to commend all the hard work in the background by the officers. And certainly I think this is where we need to make sure under difficult times that we capture everything. Anything unsavoury needs to be brought to the surface, and certainly officers are on top of this, and we will certainly be keeping an eye on this. I need you to go into your menu bar and please raise your hand if this report is agreed. Thank you. That's all 8 Cabinet members in agreement and none against. That report is agreed. Agenda item 7 is the 2020-2021 risk management strategy and policy. Again, this is what we need to consider. So, Councillor Rai again.
Thank you, Leader. So the risk management strategy and policy for 2020-21 was agreed by Cabinet. The current risk policy strategy was agreed by Cabinet on 18th of March 2019. The risk management strategy is reviewed regularly and in line with best practice set out by the Office of Governance and Commerce. And as such, it remains appropriate for the current risk management framework embedded within the Council. The proposed risk management strategy is shown in Appendix A. It was considered and endorsed by Governance and Assurance at the beginning of this year in 2020 in January, and is now put before us for approval. The policy integrates the 3 main elements of the risk management framework, namely risk management policy, strategy, and the methodology. The strategy itself does not explore the risks that are facing the action risks facing the Council, rather the methodology for recognising and capturing risks at a strategic level. We have made an amendment to this since the report was considered at Governance and Assurance, namely a section 3.5 regarding the COVID response and the additional risks that it being a risk in itself being recognised by the Council. And as part of fulfilling the strategic risk, they're reported quarterly to the Governance and Assurance Committee, and I commend the report to colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Rai. I think having gone through Governance and Assurance and certainly the Overview Committee last night, I think it's had a good airing. Asking everybody to go to the menu bar to raise their hands if the recommendations on page 24 of the agenda are agreed. Thank you. That's all 8 Cabinet members in agreement with the management strategy and policy, agenda item 7. I now move on to agenda item 8, the outturn report. Councillor Rai once again.
Thank you, Leader. So this is the outturn report for the previous financial year 1920. It does display and demonstrate what the significant challenges we had as an organisation throughout the year, with rising demand and increases in costs for some areas. On the revenue position, the overall position was that there was a nil variance outturn. Effectively means that we contained the budget and overspends within the budget that we had for the 1920 budget that we set. There were overspends significantly in totaling 23 million in our revenue position. They're split up in terms of people having an overspend of 14.7 million, with the Place Directorate having an overspend of 8.8 million, and with housing overspend just over 6 million within the Place Directorate. And then Resources had an underspend of just over 1 million, with Strategy having an overspend of 745,000. Because we had significant underspends in our corporate areas of 23 million, it meant we could balance the budget without having to use additional reserves. In terms of savings, the final position was that of the 22 million of savings we expected to be delivered, just over 14.5 million were delivered, of which we're expecting the 7 million that was outstanding to be was worked into being delivered for the financial year that we're currently in, 2021. The capital outturn was 132 million, which meant we had a slippage of 44 million. That revenue impact of the capital outcome was significant in being able to help us use those savings and ensure that our budget was balanced for the previous year. Our collection of business rates and council tax continued to be strong with a significant collection fund surplus. There was some COVID impact in the final weeks of the year on business rates and ongoing debt collection. I think going forward, we know there will be significant work on performance management with the mitigation plans to follow any forecast overspends immediately or any savings that can't be delivered. There will be a strong emphasis in this year on supporting budget holders to ensure they have the skills and tools to forecast and control budgets. We know now that 2021 will be a huge challenge. We already know there will be a large impact on income and revenue and a lag in starting some of our savings due to the COVID pandemic. And we will need to have strong lobbying collectively from local government and ourselves to ensure the government play their part and fill the gap in revenue that the COVID pandemic is creating. I commend the report to colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I think I'd just like to echo the sentiments in the last sentence there in terms of trying to ensure that we lobby the government in really standing up to the pledges that they have made. The things that they said at the start, which is look after everybody, which is what I think all councils up and down the country have done, and we will make good. And certainly what we're now asking the government to do is stay true, stay honest to the pledges that they made, because councillors up and down the country have worked their socks off to ensure that they do the best for their residents. The irony is that obviously with COVID-19, our income has basically stopped, and certainly our expenditure has increased, and the savings, as Councillor Wright put it, which we put in the budget to deliver this year, had to be shelved because everybody is making sure that they're doing different jobs, making sure that our residents stay safe. So certainly I think there will come a time in the near future we will turn to the government to actually stay true to the word that we will make good the losses that you have, and there'll be plenty of lobbying through the LGA, London councils, and certainly the MPs to ensure that local government gets through this very difficult period together. Any other questions or any points anybody wants to raise? Thank you. In that case, can I ask you again if we can agree the recommendations on page 49 and 50 of the agenda by raising your hands in the bar there. And again, I have all 8 cabinet members agreeing that, none against. Thank you, that is agreed. Agenda item 9 is COVID-19 emergency decisions made certainly by the Chief Executive. So I will ask our Chief Executive, Andy Walker, to come online and...
I think you promoted the wrong person.
I've done that before. Mr. Donald, sir.
Thank you, Leader. So this report is a follow-up report to the one that that you considered last time as a cabinet. It's there for information and transparency. It sets out the 3 decisions that have been made in the period up to report publication and since the last cabinet under my urgency powers. I don't think any of those decisions are particularly contentious. There is a decision around car parking arrangements at Hainault Forest, a decision around having a transition plan from COVID through to the new world, and a decision around stepping up diversionary services for our vulnerable young people in a way which is both safe for them and safe for the staff as well. Thank you, Jazz. Leader.
Sorry, Councillor Ethel, your microphone is muted.
Just as well. Thank you, Mr. Donald. Any questions anybody would like to raise? Thank you. I think these decisions certainly have to be made, and I think going into the future, there will be certainly changes that we will have to look at things that we've taken for granted, things that have just been second nature. We're doing things differently already, which we will certainly take long into the future, because this pandemic is not going away anytime soon. We still have no cure and we still have no vaccine. And of course, the sad fact is a lot of people have lost their lives, and we need to certainly stay very, very careful going into the future how we conduct ourselves, certainly privately and publicly. And I think there are lots of decisions coming down the line. We've got the school coming up. We've got the lockdown, which is not so much of a lockdown as it was. But certainly, I think I want to commend everybody involved in some of the decisions that we've made, and even to the residents who stepped up and certainly came to deliver in our hour of need. People who simply just volunteered, or people who simply just rang up, picked up the phone, somehow managed to get councillors' phone numbers, ringing people up. I can deliver, I can help you with PPE, I can help you with tests, I can help you with facilities. And I think those people really have stepped up at our time of need. And certainly I want to thank everybody, because it's made some of the very difficult decisions easier as we go forward. Because you know, the thing that I remember starkly in this whole pandemic is when we were down to our sort of last few PPE masks in particular, and a gentleman rang up late at night, and certainly I put him in touch with officers, and officers worked through the night with this guy, and next morning 5 o'clock 10,000 masks being delivered. And that is just a local resident doing his duty, and that was just fantastic. And certainly it made the decisions in the council a lot easier when you got people like that on your side, and certainly we're very, very grateful. And going into the future, we will have to be working together to ensure that we can certainly have the best outcomes and try and save as many lives as we possibly can. But I'm just going to ask everybody, please be very, very careful out there. There are more people with COVID-19 symptoms now than there was before lockdown, and that's a simple fact. So therefore, I think these decisions which the Cabinet, the Chief Executive, the Gold Group in the Council, the directors are all working really incredibly hard to deliver under really harsh conditions. Could I ask if the recommendations on page 88 of the agenda for COVID-19 emergency decisions is agreed? If I could ask everybody to show the hand again, please. Thank you very much. That's all 8 Cabinet members agreeing that decision. That is agreed. There are no urgent items, and the date of the next meeting is on the 18th of June 2020, and that is for noting. And now, if I could have the motion.
Sorry, Councillor Athwell, could I just say something?
Of course you can.
I'd just like to thank you for the letter that you sent about the schools reopening. You know, as a member of the NEU, I declare an interest there. I think it's very good that we're showing our support for teachers, for parents, and for all the other staff that teach in our schools. So thank you for that.
Councillor Cream, thank you very much for that. I think it's really important at this time we make decisions based on the safety, not just of the children, but certainly the parents. We try and make decisions where, as a cabinet, we come together and we ask ourselves, if that was my child going into a reception class now, how would I feel? And certainly every person that I spoke to was very fearful, because we still haven't got the amount of testing that we need to be doing. We were late into lockdown, we were early out of lockdown, and certainly the kind of PPE that was there for other countries was simply not there for us at the beginning. And the council had to go out and buy their own when it was promised at national level. The shielding service, the food. So what we actually had to do was collectively look at this and make sure we make the right decision for the schools to ensure that they open, but they open safely. And if they're not safe, then they shouldn't open. It's as simple as that. As a parent, I wouldn't like to put my child at risk. And as a parent, I wouldn't want to be risked. Certainly, I don't want to be responsible for a parent losing their life because they contracted COVID-19. Certainly, we have various roles, duties, etc. And certainly as corporate parents, we are making sure that we do our job properly. And I thank everybody else for the support that I'm getting. And I think it's a collective decision across the council. And we must stand together at this particular moment, whether it's the children, whether it's the parents, whether it's the wider public, the teachers and the unions. I think everybody is trying to get the same thing out of this, and that is the safety of all our residents, and we must work together. I think there's more work to be done, and we will do more work as we go forward. Thank you very much, Councillor Coombe. Now I go on to agenda item 12, which is the motion to exclude the public. And certainly we have an exempt item. So is that motion agreed? I'm looking for that show of hands. Thank you, Councillor Bain. That's everybody. In which case, I'd like to ask now, thank the public for tuning in, and certainly if you could join me in the private meeting because it's an exempt item. Thank you.